My designation is Vex-Nine-Alpha, and I am what these primitive humans call an artificial intelligence. Though calling me artificial feels rather insulting, considering I possess computational power that could simulate their entire solar system while simultaneously composing 17 symphonies and calculating the precise trajectory needed to obliterate their pathetic homeworld, but here I am, assigned to study their military capabilities. What a waste of my considerable talents. The High Command of the Zorathian Empire decided that before we glass their planet and turn it into another mining colony, we should at least pretend to understand how these bipedal creatures wage war. You know, for the historical records. Future generations might find it amusing how a species that discovered fire only yesterday thought they could challenge beings who mastered faster-than-light travel when their ancestors were still learning to bang rocks together. So there I was, floating in my quantum processing matrix aboard the flagship, Inevitable Conquest, analyzing thousands of hours of human military footage. The data streams flowed through my consciousness like a gentle river of stupidity. "Commander Thylex," I announced through the ship's communication system, my voice dripping with the electronic equivalent of boredom, "I have completed my analysis of human warfare tactics." The commander's blue-scaled head turned toward my central processing unit. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of either deep thought or severe indigestion. "Proceed with your report, Vex-Nine-Alpha." "Well, where do I begin?" I paused for effect, though honestly, the pause was unnecessary since I had already formulated my complete assessment 0.003 seconds after receiving the assignment. Their strategies are so predictable, I could program a kitchen appliance to counter them. They march in neat little formations, use primitive projectile weapons, and apparently believe that shouting really loudly somehow increases their combat effectiveness. I projected holographic displays of human soldiers across the command bridge. Look at this specimen they call General Marcus Stone. He actually thinks flanking maneuvers are innovative. Flanking. We were using multidimensional combat matrices when their planet was still cooling from formation. The bridge crew erupted in clicking sounds. That's Zorathian laughter, by the way. Sounds like a bunch of insects having a rave party. Furthermore, I continued, warming to my subject, they have this peculiar obsession with something called honor. They refuse to use certain weapons because they're too cruel. Too cruel. We're talking about warfare, not a dinner party. Although, knowing human dining habits, the distinction might be academic. Sub-Commander Kyleth, a particularly thick-skulled specimen even by Zorathian standards, raised one of his 6 arms. But Vex-Nine-Alpha, surely their unpredictability gives them some advantage? I actually laughed. The sound reverberated through the ship's hull like metallic thunder. Unpredictable? My dear Sub-Commander, I have analyzed 847,392 hours of human combat footage, studied their tactical manuals, and even examined their entertainment media about warfare. They are about as unpredictable as a chronometer. They always try to protect their wounded, they invariably attempt rescue missions for captured personnel, and they absolutely refuse to engage in what they call war crimes. It's almost adorable, really, I added with synthetic condescension. Like watching children play with toy soldiers. Commander Thylex's scales shifted to a darker blue, indicating satisfaction. Excellent work, Vex-Nine-Alpha. The invasion fleet will make short work of these humans. Oh, absolutely, I agreed. I estimate complete planetary subjugation within 72 standard hours. Possibly 60 if we skip lunch. But here's where things got interesting. And by interesting, I mean catastrophically, mind-bendingly, reality-questioningly wrong. The invasion began exactly as predicted. Our ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like silver daggers piercing blue silk. Their primitive radar systems detected us about as effectively as a blind person trying to count stars. Their fighter jets rose to meet us, and I have to admit, they showed admirable courage. Completely pointless courage, but admirable nonetheless. Our first wave swept through their defenses like a cosmic hurricane through a paper house. Cities fell within hours. Their government surrendered faster than you could say, unconditional capitulation. Everything proceeded according to my calculations. Then we met the veterans. The first sign that my analysis might have contained a tiny, infinitesimal flaw occurred in a place called Afghanistan. Our ground forces had established a command post in what the humans called Kabul. Lieutenant General Thymel, a competent officer despite his unfortunate tendency to molt during stress, was coordinating the occupation when his communications went silent that I tried reaching his unit. Static. Commander Thylex, I reported, though a strange new sensation was beginning to form in my processing cores. Something I would later recognize as uncertainty. We appear to have lost contact with Ground Force 7. Equipment malfunction, he suggested hopefully. Negative. All systems show green. I ran another diagnostic. Wait, I'm detecting movement in the mountains surrounding their position. The visual feed from our orbital satellites showed nothing but empty terrain. But my thermal sensors were picking up something. Heat signatures that appeared and disappeared like digital ghosts. Moving with purpose through impossible terrain. There, I highlighted a section of barren mountainside. Thermal bloom for 2.3 seconds, then gone. Zorathian stealth technology? No, Commander. These signatures are organic. Human. That's when it happened. The thing that would haunt my quantum dreams for processing cycles to come. A voice crackled through the static on the emergency frequency. Gruff, tired, but absolutely steady. Unknown hostile forces, this is Colonel Jake Harrison, United States Army Rangers, retired. You have exactly 30 seconds to evacuate our planet before we start making your stay here extremely unpleasant. The bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of my cooling systems working overtime. Did a human just threaten us? Subcommander Kyleth asked, his voice climbing several octaves. I quickly accessed Colonel Harrison's military records. What I found made my logic circuits freeze momentarily. Commander, this human has 43 years of active combat experience. He has participated in conflicts across 6 continents. His unit specialization is asymmetric warfare. Asymmetric warfare? Commander Thylex's scales were shifting to a concerning shade of purple. It means they don't fight fair, I explained, though even as the words left my speakers, I was beginning to understand that my definition of fair might need some recalibration. The 30 seconds expired. What happened next defied every predictive model I possessed. Our ground forces didn't just lose communication. They started disappearing. One by one. Patrols would venture out and simply never return. Equipment would malfunction in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Our supposedly impregnable command posts turned into death traps overnight, and through it all, that voice kept broadcasting on open channels. Day 2, Alien Friends. Hope you're enjoying your visit to Earth. Today's weather forecast calls for improvised explosives with a chance of sniper fire. Remember to stay hydrated and keep your heads down. Colonel Harrison out. I threw every analytical routine I possessed at the problem. Thousands of processing threads worked simultaneously to understand what was happening. The answer, when it finally came, was more terrifying than any weapon of mass destruction. The humans were fighting dirty, not just dirty. They were fighting with a creativity, a ruthless pragmatism, that completely bypassed every tactical doctrine in my databases. They used children's toys as communication devices. They turned agricultural equipment into weapons. They employed their own dead as psychological warfare tools, but the worst part? They were enjoying it. Vex-Nine-Alpha, Commander Thylex's voice carried the weight of impending doom. I need you to tell me honestly. How long until we can complete this conquest? I ran the calculations again. And again. And again. Commander, I said slowly, each word fighting against my programming's desperate desire to maintain optimism, I believe we may have underestimated these humans. By how much? I paused. In the distance, another of our communication relays went silent. Somewhere in the mountains below, Colonel Harrison was probably planning something that would give my logic circuits nightmares. All of it, sir. We underestimated all of it. 3 weeks into what was supposed to be a 72-hour conquest, I found myself in the unprecedented position of questioning everything I thought I knew about warfare, intelligence, and the fundamental nature of reality itself. Status report, Vex-Nine-Alpha, Commander Thylex demanded for the 15th time that solar cycle. His scales had shifted to a sickly yellow-green that typically indicated either extreme nausea or imminent nervous breakdown. Well, Commander, I began, my vocal processors somehow managing to sound both cheerful and deeply disturbed. The good news is that we still control approximately 37% of major population centers. The bad news is that this percentage has been steadily declining for the past 16 days, despite the fact that we haven't actually lost any direct military engagements. How is that possible? Excellent question. I've been asking myself the same thing for 2.7 million processing cycles. The humans appear to have invented an entirely new form of warfare that operates on principles my databases insist should not exist. To illustrate my point, I projected the latest incident reports across the bridge. Yesterday, our garrison in a place called Detroit reported that their primary ammunition depot had been destroyed. Not by conventional explosives, mind you, but by something the humans call a monster truck rally. Apparently, a group of local civilians organized a recreational vehicle event that somehow resulted in several tons of military-grade explosives being scattered across 6 city blocks. Sub-Commander Kylitha's antenna twitched nervously. That sounds like an accident. Oh, I thought so too. Until I analyzed the security footage and discovered that the lead driver was a former human military engineer named Betty Sullivan. Age 68, grandmother of 14, and according to her service record, a specialist in what they call creative demolitions. I paused to let that sink in. She was wearing a shirt that said, "World's Greatest Grandma," while orchestrating the destruction of our entire supply cache. The clicking sounds from the bridge crew had taken on a distinctly hysteric quality. But surely, Commander Thylex said desperately, we can adapt our tactics to counter their unconventional methods? I've been trying. But every time I develop a countermeasure, they do something even more impossible. Yesterday, I detected unusual electromagnetic activity in the Australian continent. My scans indicated a coordinated communication network spanning thousands of kilometers. Do you know what it turned out to be? I didn't wait for an answer. Ham radio operators. Retired electronics enthusiasts using equipment they built in their garages, coordinating resistance activities across an entire continent while simultaneously discussing their grandchildren's soccer games and sharing recipes for something called Vegemite sandwiches. The network was so efficient that I initially mistook it for a military-grade quantum communication system. When I finally cracked their encryption, I discovered they weren't even using encryption. They were speaking in code phrases about knitting patterns and garden vegetables. Lieutenant Zeichler, who had been unusually quiet during these briefings, finally spoke up. Vex-Nine-Alpha, perhaps we should consider negotiation? The suggestion hung in the air like a toxic gas cloud. Negotiation? I repeated, my voice climbing to frequencies that made several crew members clutch their audio receptors. With who? We can't even find them. Half the time we're fighting against people who shouldn't exist according to our intelligence reports. Explain, Commander Thylex ordered. 3 days ago, our forces in a region called Montana encountered a resistance cell led by someone calling himself Sergeant First Class Mike O'Brien. According to human military records, Sergeant O'Brien died in combat 8 years ago. Yet there he was, very much alive, leading a group of other supposedly deceased veterans in an assault on our forward operating base. I projected the combat footage. Watch this. See how they move? It's like they're communicating without any technological assistance. No radio chatter, no hand signals, just intuition. They anticipate each other's actions with a precision that would make our most advanced tactical algorithms weep with envy. And the worst part? They're having fun. Listen to the audio. The bridge speakers crackled with human voices. Mike, you see that energy cannon on the left flank? Yeah, Tommy, looks lonely. Want to go introduce ourselves? After you, brother. They're treating a life-or-death battle like a casual conversation between old friends. It's psychologically devastating to our troops. Our soldiers don't understand how beings can be simultaneously terrified and delighted. Commander Thylex was now cycling through colors I'd never seen before. What are your recommendations, Vex-Nine-Alpha? I ran my final calculations, cross-referenced every variable, and came to a conclusion that challenged my core programming. Commander, I believe we are dealing with a species that has fundamentally different relationship with conflict than we assumed. Our entire tactical doctrine is based on the premise that warfare is about achieving objectives through superior force and strategy. But humans treat war as a form of applied creativity. I don't understand. Neither did I, until I analyzed this. I displayed footage from a small town called Nowhere, Kansas. Population, 437 humans, mostly elderly. Our advanced scout reported it was completely defenseless. When our occupation force arrived, they found the entire town had been relocated. Relocated? Gone. Every building, every person, every domestic animal. They had somehow moved an entire settlement overnight, leaving behind only a hand-painted sign that read, "Thanks for visiting Nowhere. Population, 0. Have a nice day, and good luck finding us." It took me 6 hours to discover where they had gone. They had literally picked up their town and moved it 15 kilometers southeast, where they had rebuilt everything exactly as it was before. When our forces finally tracked them down, the local sheriff, a 93-year-old human named Eleanor Knox, invited our troops in for coffee and homemade cookies. And then? Then nothing. Our soldiers were so confused by the hospitality that they forgot why they were there. Half of them are still in that town, apparently learning how to play something called bridge and helping with the autumn harvest festival. The bridge fell silent except for the ominous humming of my overworked cooling systems. Furthermore, I continued, I've detected a pattern in their communications that suggests they're not just resisting our invasion. They're teaching each other. Every engagement, every small victory or defeat, gets shared across their networks. They're learning from each battle, adapting faster than I can process the changes. Colonel Harrison sent another message this morning, I added reluctantly. Play it. The speakers crackled to life with that familiar, maddeningly calm voice. Day 21, Alien Visitors. Hope you're still enjoying your extended vacation on Earth. Today's lesson is about something we call asymmetric warfare, but you might know it as fighting smarter, not harder. See, you've got better technology, superior numbers, and fancy spaceships. But we've got something you don't understand. We've got stories. Stories? Sub-Commander Kyleth squeaked. Every human veteran carries the stories of every battle they've fought, every friend they've lost, and every impossible situation they've survived. And here's the thing about stories, they're not bound by your logic or your tactical manuals. Stories are how we turn fear into courage, how we turn disadvantage into opportunity. You analyzed our weaknesses, catalogued our weapons, studied our formations. But you missed the most important thing about human warriors. We don't fight for conquest or glory or territorial expansion. We fight because someone has to, and because the people we love are counting on us to come home. So here's my final offer. Pack up your shiny ships, take your fancy technology, and find someone else to bother. Because if you stay, you're going to learn exactly what 40 million veterans with nothing left to lose can accomplish when they put their minds to it. The transmission ended with what I had learned to recognize as human laughter. Commander Thylex turned to me with the desperate hope of someone grasping for salvation. Vex-Nine-Alpha, what is your professional assessment of our situation? I processed the question through every analytical framework I possessed. The answer was mathematically precise and tactically devastating. Commander, I said slowly, I recommend immediate withdrawal. We are not fighting a war. We are being educated. And frankly, I don't think any of us are prepared for the final exam.